Hello and welcome to Hot Topic. I'm Hugh Richards, and this week I'm with Councillor Chris Shaw, leader of North East Lincolnshire Council and leader of the Labour group on that council, which does not quite have a majority. Chris, welcome. Thank you for coming in. Must start off news from a couple of weeks ago about the expenses of councillors. In the year leading up to April 2014, allowances and expenses for councillors came to £520,405.34, £500,000. Does that seem a lot?
Not really. We think there's 42 councils, and that takes account of the allowances that are prescribed by the remuneration panel, and also special responsibility that some councillors have for taking on extra work. But also it also includes things like transport costs. Now, some councillors claim expenses and some councillors don't claim expenses. That's a matter for their judgment. I actually myself don't claim expenses, but there again, I do get my basic allowance and I get an allowance for being leader of the council. But there again, my role is a full-time role. It
works out at about £11,827 per councillor. That's an awful lot of lunches out.
It isn't lunches out. You've got to bear in mind this is where councillors spend a lot of time outside normal working hours. I mean, being an elected member of North East Council is not a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. You get called out of bed by residents who are in distress at all times of the day and the night. I myself was called out the other day by a lady whose ceiling had collapsed at 2 o'clock in the morning and she couldn't get hold of her landlord. Well, you know, she had to call somebody, she calls us.
But people don't go into politics for the money, for the remuneration, do they? They go into it very generously on the whole to serve and to create a benefit to the society in the community in which they live.
But you've got to bear in mind a lot of the meetings take place during the day, so if you've got a time off work on a regular basis and you couldn't make that money up, you couldn't afford to have normal members of the public as elected members. And if we're not at a stage whereby all elected members are either retired, well off, or unemployed, you do need some kind of remuneration. You know, I mean, this is not running, no disrespect to them, a parish council. This is a unitary authority that takes care of child safety, adult social care, highways, more than just what a small district might do.
Your opposite number, the leader of the Conservative group, Philip Jackson on the council, said that the public always want good councillors and for the authority to be run properly, but when there's a mention of allowances, it seems to make councillors unpopular. No kidding. You surprised?
I mean, my thing is, at the end of the day, I mean, you wouldn't say, well, why do we pay bus drivers? Well, we pay bus drivers because to drive buses. Being an elected member is exactly the same. We pay elected members. Elected members have to go through an awful lot of training to get to where they are, but also they have to deal with the public on a day-to-day basis. You know, and sometimes you can help the public, sometimes the public don't like what you say. It is an unforgiving job, you know, and we have to put a lot of training. We have mandatory training now for child safety, which is only correct that we should do that, but that means being dragged out of work, you know, being dragged out of your home. Firstly, every night. I mean, last week I was out every night last week, and at the weekend, and then during the day I was doing the full-time role within the council.
Moving on to the opposite end of the monetary scale, as it were, a couple of weeks ago, the Channel 4 broadcast Skint, based on the East March in Grimsby, and it didn't paint a pretty picture. Well, first of all, how do you respond to the programme itself? What do you think of Channel 4's decision?
The thing is, 195,000 people live in North East Lincolnshire. It focused on 6 people who have got issues within their life, who are struggling to make ends meet. Some of whom I think, you know, were probably set up by the programme to act the way they did. At the end of the day, you know, it didn't show the other 194,000 plus people who actually get on with life. You know, what we need to do is help those that need to be helped. East Marsh is a challenging area, as we all know, but so are other areas of the borough. And to be honest with you, I don't think the programme was as bad as it was when they filmed in Scunthorpe. I think, you know, North East Links came out of it fairly well. I mean, one thing they didn't show when they were down the docks is all the renewables boats that are in there, where we've now got a bigger renewables fleet than our fishing fleet ever was.
But still, the East Marsh is one of the poorest wards in the country, and this is as close as you can get to absolute poverty in Great Britain. How do you feel about the fact that that's one of the poorest wards in the country in your town on your watch?
The thing about it is, East Marsh, it's not a case of it's got like that on my watch. It's been like that for a number of years. What we're doing is trying to get people back into work. And one of the things we need to do is make sure that we have a good mix of industry within North East Lincolnshire. So it's not a case of all our eggs are in one basket. That's what happened. Grimsby was built on fishing and fishing alone. And when that industry went, there was nothing. We need to make sure that we have other industries that people can work in.
One other point just from watching that programme. Everybody seems to be so inarticulate. I've no particular objection to ancient and spicy Anglo-Saxon language, which goes back to our literary forebears. But they just didn't seem to know very many other words either. What's wrong with education in North East Lincolnshire that it produces people so inarticulate?
Well, there's nothing wrong with education. Our educational attainment now is the highest it's been for quite a number of years. I think the problem is it's very easy for people to slip into that, and it's a case of it's probably the company you keep, but it's also the way you've been brought up. You know, if it's the norm, and, you know, and in a hard industry like fishing, I suppose it would have been the norm.
No, I don't mean the swearing particularly, which is a splendid English tradition. I mean just the not having any other words to use, the lack of vocabulary.
Well, I think the thing is with that is it's just it was probably done more than anything to play up for the cameras, and the thing is at the end of the day, it's very easy to play it for the cameras, and you know, people will do that. I think what we've got to look at is to see at the end of it, what does it show? It shows in a lot of respects the same people week in, week out. It says a lot for the film crews and for this area if they could only find the 10 or 15 people they've managed to find through the whole of the series to go on the camera.
You think it was a casting job? It was cast specially to find the roughest, toughest types that they possibly could?
I think they've done it to find the people that are most in need and show them in what has not been a flattering light. You know, and I think what we need to do is, you know, help those people wherever we can. But also we need to make sure that within our community, you're only as strong as your weakest link. You know, and if we've got people who are down on their luck, who need help to get back into employment and to get a decent place to live, then that is what we should all do. As a society, we should all do that.
Moving on to another great issue under your regime, which is the speed limit on Peaks Parkway, which has been so much of a preoccupation for Grimsby for such a long time now. A month or so ago, it came back up to 40 miles per hour on the main stretch. Why did? And you said, if you get fined, don't come bleating to me.
Yes.
Well, I wouldn't have come bleating to you anyway. But why did it take so long in a wide dual carriageway road, no shops, no pavements, great retaining walls either side of it? Why did it take so long to come up from that ridiculously low speed limit?
Well, can I just correct you, Hugh? It's never been 40 miles an hour. It was built at 30 miles an hour and was always 30 miles an hour.
But now it's...
The thing is, now it's 40 miles an hour. When I came to be leader of the council, the policy was 30 miles an hour. The previous administration could have changed it to 40, but actually didn't go through with it. They got so far and actually bottled out. It came back to us. We went through the consultation. It did take 9 months. But prior to me being here, it took 9 months just to get to an advert stage. We, within 9 months, listened to what the public told us and did it. The thing is, it was a council policy that I inherited. And as leader of the council, like it or not, I have to abide by the council's policies.
But
I could change the policy, but the policy that was there, I have to adhere to.
But you couldn't change it sooner, you couldn't change it faster.
We couldn't change it sooner or faster because we have to go through all the consultation and we have to let those who are going to object. Now, Humberside Police objected, we dealt with the objection and we made a decision as a council to change it to 40 miles an hour.
What was the police's objection, sorry?
Well, police objection, that they said more people would be injured and killed on the road if it moved to 40 miles an hour. We asked them to back up that up with evidence. They couldn't come up with evidence, it was anecdotal. And we said, therefore, if there's no evidence, then we would find that 40 miles an hour was, you know, a decent speed limit.
But it's always
the thing about it is that I go down there every morning, and people still not doing 40 miles an hour. They're still doing 30 miles an hour. I think the thing is, it wasn't the speed limit; it was the cameras that was the main issue. And the thing about the cameras is, people were doing more than the speed limit. That's why I said, now the speed limit's 40. If you go 50. Well, don't come arguing because, like, you know the speed limit's 40 miles an hour.
Just to go back to what the police said, I don't know, this is perhaps a criticism of them rather than you, but the argument that the slower you go, the fewer accidents you'll have is spurious, isn't it? Because ultimately you'll wind up just having no cars, all of them driving at 5 miles per hour, and there'll be nobody getting hurt, but nobody will be moving around either.
I think the thing is with traffic is, if you get traffic at a constant speed and a constant flow, you'll be all right. I think what's wrong with Peaks Parkway, when it was designed way back in the 1980s, it wasn't designed as what it should be used for. You know, for me, it's a road from the middle of Grimsby really to nowhere. It needs to be used as a major route into a place like Cleethorpes. We need to get people off Grimsby Road and using that to get into the south of Cleethorpes.
All that time that the speed limit was 30 miles per hour, there were an awful lot of people fined. Where did all that money go, all that fine money go?
Well, all that money goes to government. It doesn't come to North East Links Council. The one thing we don't get is any money from speeding whatsoever. And people put it as a spurious argument, oh, it's the council getting rich. It isn't. The council don't see any of that money. So therefore, it goes to government, to the Treasury.
If it has now been found through a democratic process, through the council, that it is right and just that that speed limit should now be 40 miles per hour, then it would always have been right and just that that speed limit should be 40 miles per hour. Is there any mechanism by which people who have been fined by an unright and unjust law at 30, that they can recover their money?
It wasn't an unjust law. The law was 30 miles an hour. People choose to break the law, and they got fined for it. We've changed the speed limit. What we're saying now is people should drive at 40 miles an hour. Before people knew it was 30 miles an hour. I use that road myself every day. I drove at 30 miles an hour. Now I drive a little bit faster because I'm allowed to. But I work within the law, and people should work within the law. It's not an unjust law. The law of the land is set by government and and by the Crown, and we need to abide by it.
Have you ever been caught by those cameras?
I've never been caught by those cameras, no, and touch wood for the fine some. I've never yet had a speeding ticket, but there again, anybody can get a speeding ticket. It takes that small amount of lack of concentration, and you can get caught by speeding cameras. And we all do it when we drive. We all have every now and then have a lack of concentration. I guess I'm just one of the lucky ones. But the thing is, what we're saying now is the speed limit is 40 miles an hour.
Chris, I must stop there just for the break. Thank you very much for that. Please join us again after this short break. Welcome back to Hot Topic. I'm talking to Chris Shaw, Labour leader of North East Lincolnshire Council. Chris, thanks again for coming in. Can I just ask you about the local plan? It had been planned to be ready for November 2017. It's been brought forward to February 2017. But we need a swift and efficient planning policy now, don't we?
We do need a planning policy now. The thing is, government changed the rules halfway through, so we had to redo it. We are working with the Department of Culture. When Eric Pickles came to North East Links, I did ask him for extra help from government to help us do it. He agreed to that. We have a local plan development board, which is made up of officers, but also of 3 elected members: the portfolio for Regen, the portfolio for Environment, and the leader of the opposition group, Councillor Jackson, actually sits on the local plan. He's one of the people that's implementing the local plan. So I share his concerns why it's taken him and his colleagues so long.
We have, I get that there's a local plan there, and it will be there, but we have quite severe needs, don't we? There's an estimate that we need about 732 new houses per year in North East Lincolnshire just to solve our housing problems. Is that achievable?
Well, it is achievable, but we need to look at where we're going to build it. Some of it will be on brownfield sites. Some of it will, out of necessity, have to be on greenfield sites. What we need to make sure is get the balance right.
Where are those greenfield sites likely to be? Which villages, which parts of the green belt are most likely to be affected?
Well, I don't, unfortunately for my sins, I don't actually deal with planning, because planning is a quasi-judicial body. It's dealt with by a planning committee. My view is the houses will be where developers think they can build them and sell them. But I'd like to see more on brownfield sites within North East Links. But in order to do that, we need to make those brownfield sites attractive, not only to the developer, but also to the people who are going to purchase the houses after they've been built.
What brownfield sites do you have in mind? I mean, I think that people have always been coming up with plans to regenerate and redevelop the docks.
Well, if you look at the sites we've got, the Bird's Eye site, it's in private hands, it's not owned by the council. We need to work with the developer so he can put on a plan, because developers won't build if they're not making money. And we've got lots of sites like that. The Old Clifton Bingo site, you've got the Winter Garden site in Cleethorpes. We've got no end of sites that could be developed, but it's got to be made more viable for people to do.
If nobody's building on the beautiful, wonderful old Winter Garden site in Cleethorpes, why did we knock them down?
Well, we didn't knock them down, of course. The people that owned the Winter Garden site sold it to a housing developer who demolished it, and now is land banked the site, waiting for a turnaround in the economy so they can build houses. And that's what it is, it's the turnaround in the economy. There's got to be a need there. We're now, because we're getting more employment into the area, we are getting a good need for it.
Talking of the economy, there's plenty of discussion at the moment of the great northern powerhouse, of taking the northern cities and connecting them up so that they create, that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. How does Grimsby benefit from that?
Well, we benefit at the moment. We're in 2 LEPs, local enterprise partnerships. We're in the Humber one and we're in the Lincolnshire one. Now, there is movement, people saying we ought to have a combined authority with authorities on the North Bank. I don't think we need to do
Well,
that.
we tried that before and we didn't like it.
Well, the thing is, we're not on about doing they're not on about doing a Humberside County Council. They're doing it for economic purposes, not a big local council. But even saying that, we have a joint committee that's been working really well up to now. You know, we've worked together as the authorities across the Humber to bring in jobs and growth. And if you look in Grimsby, you know, we've never seen so much growth as we're seeing now. New hotels, new businesses coming. It's really good.
Well, that's largely because of the renewable energies industry that's coming here, and that's something we'll talk about, and that's happy news, no doubt. But just in the Northern Powerhouse idea, the investment is much more likely to go to the big cities, simply because there are more people there who will benefit from it, and there are more votes there to support it. So Grimsby, as you know, Grimsby, Cleethorpes, North East Lincolnshire, your jurisdiction, it's going to lose out, isn't it?
Not really. As I was at a meeting last week in Westminster where I pointed out to ministers who were listening that it's all right having great cities like Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, Birmingham. If the rail link out of Grimsby closes for 2 weeks, the lights in those big cities will go out because we're the powerhouse, because we bring in the most tonnage of any port in the UK through Birmingham. We supply 40% of the energy needs of the whole country. If we're not there and we're not successful, those cities won't be successful because they won't have any electricity.
If we are that important and we have such a vital port and we are such an economic powerhouse, why do we have areas like East March where they can make programmes like Skint?
Because at the moment we've had nobody up until now being prepared to go and bang the table with government. You know, people say I'm a bit forthright in the way I act. I am, and I do that in Westminster. You know, and I'm down there and I'm working with the MPs, banging that table, saying, look, this area deserves better. Now, we all know that cuts have got to be made to funding, but it's not how you cut it, it's how you share out the money. And what we're saying is this area doesn't get its fair share. You
just mentioned that you're down there in Westminster banging the table, but you're not down there as a member of the House of Commons. Would you like to be?
Well, I stood for Cleethorpes, as people will know. I stood for the Labour Party for Cleethorpes. Peter Keith is the candidate. Peter's got my full support. Peter will make an excellent MP for Cleethorpes, and I'm looking forward to being down there with him banging the table. In saying that, you know, it's down to MPs to go down and make the case in Westminster. My job down there is to support them.
You weren't tempted to stand for the Great Grimsby seat after Austin Mitchell's retirement and put off by the all-women shortlist?
No, my thing is I'm a Cleethorpes resident. If I was going to be an MP anyway, it'll be Cleethorpes. I mean, I could go and be an MP in other parts of the country. I'm a Cleethorpes resident. If I was going to be an MP, I want to be an MP for the town in which I live.
Talking of the local Labour Party, there's been a certain amount of turbulence, hasn't there, recently? There was a vote of confidence brought against you by Terry Thorogood and Matthew Brown earlier this year. Why was that? You won, I know, but why
it's just challenge is good. I mean, they decided that they think that, you know, a new leader would do things differently. The rest of the Labour group didn't agree with him.
What was their objection to your leadership?
Well, there wasn't. They were just saying that, you know, maybe if we had somebody different. The thing is, I'll be honest with you, for the last 3 years I've been elected unopposed. I think, to be fair to Matthew and Terry, they thought it was about time that I actually fought for the seat I've got. And it wasn't. It's an election, not a coronation.
Ian Lindley defected to the Tories. Now, that's a big jump to make across any political spectrum. What prompted that? Was he pushed or did he jump?
I don't know that. You have to ask Ian Lindley that question. I mean, my thing is I get on well with Ian. I still get on well with Ian. It's a case of what we need to do is, you know, take some of the personalities out of it. I mean, I've got friends in most of the political parties in North East Links. Some I consider sensible, some I don't. And you know, it's the same in every party.
Who don't you consider sensible?
Well, I'm not going to say that on air, but I think the members who I think are not sensible know that I think they're not sensible.
You're leader of the council. You have been for some time now, but with differing statistics, differing numbers of councillors from different parties within the council. At the moment, you have absolute brinkmanship, don't you, on the council? It must be an absolutely impossible job and you don't have an overall majority.
Well, when I first became leader of the council, I only had 19 members. I've now got 21. It's a case of we do like we do then. I meet with other leaders on a regular basis. We do our party things that we put forward and that other parties put forward. But on the whole, we agree what we're there for is for the benefit of North East Lincolnshire.
So, well, I mean, I think nobody goes into politics for any party for any other reason than that. But you have, four parties represented in the council. So is that a matter of a pact between you and one or two of the other parties, or is it the four leaders get together for a cup of tea every Friday afternoon and just try to work out what they can agree on?
I think what we do is we speak to the leaders about things that concern North East Links predominantly. There'll be things we don't agree on all the time, But in saying that, I mean, I've done this before. It's been a case of, it's quite healthy to have it whereby you have to talk to other people.
It's Great Grimsby, or North East Lincolnshire is a sort of in microcosm a national story, isn't it? When we have a hung parliament with a coalition government at the moment, is there anything that the Westminster Parliament can learn from the town hall in North East Lincolnshire?
They can learn that coalitions don't work. That's what I found out when I inherited the mess that was left.
Does it mean that you can't have any initiative? You can't take any initiative. You can't drive anything new through?
No. I think the thing is, if you're driving through things that are sensible, people will support you. And 9 times out of 10, we do get support. We had a motion about the renewables industry a few months ago, and all 4 parties agreed to that. Even our local UKIP members agreed that renewables were a good thing, which is quite strange because that's not their party policy nationally. But they could see it being good locally, and that's why they supported it.
In North East Lincolnshire Council, there has for some time been a UKIP presence. It's only very new in the Westminster Parliament that that's existed. Why is it that Great Grimsby, the parliamentary seat of Great Grimsby, is so tempting for UKIP that they're so hopeful that this will be one of their fruits?
I think the thing is, if you look at UKIP, they've got quite a growth on the East Coast. They're all putting it down to being fishing, of course, but I mean, the fishing industry in Grimsby and North East Lincolnshire really petered out some 20 years ago.
Well, 40 years ago, really.
40 years ago. But if you look at it, it's a case of, my thing is, I'm not bothered who people vote for. I'd love them to vote for the Labour Party, but I'm happy that people now are getting out to vote in greater numbers, because that's what's been the malaise up to now, people not going out and voting. So people vote, they elect the councils or the governments they want, but then once they've elected them, there's no point moaning about them. They're the ones you elected.
I think we'll reserve our right to moan, thank you very much. But if UKIP were elected, see, the reason that they're so popular is it's not necessarily because of any of the things upon which they campaign. It's just that the people who vote for them hate all the current aspects of government. And perhaps it's just that people hate being governed.
I think basically what it is, I'm not going to say it's just a protest vote. People will vote for it. But I mean, when I speak to some UKIP supporters locally, it's not that they believe in UKIP. It's just that they're saying, well, we needed to stand for somebody and we didn't want to stand for one of the main parties, so we stood for them. Well, that's fine. My thing is, what I want to see locally this year are some of the policies that are going to come out. We've got a hard thing to decide in a couple of months' time. It's called the budget. No party is actually happy with the budget. We have to be content with it because we have to deal with the cuts that we've been forced.
You have elections coming up in May that could completely change the flavour of the council. Are you secure in your job?
Well, I may as well say it now. I mean, I took on the leader of the council's role for 4 years. My 4 years comes to an end next May. I've got no intention of carrying on as leader of North Essex Council after that 4-year term. I said that when I took it over.
And you'll still be in the council then?
And I'll still be on the council.
Chris, I have to stop you there. Thank you very much for coming on to Hot Topic. That's all we have time for this week, I regret. I'll have another Hot Topic for you next week. I hope you'll join me then. But for now, goodbye.